That, my friends, was a good old-fashioned butt whooping. Yikes.
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. Welcome into this live postcast edition of the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily Tar Heels daily show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. Special shout out to all the everydayers who are here with us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, our great insiders as well. This episode is brought to you by Mazda, who puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, but putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Oh my. Caleb Wilson or not, Henri Veesaar or not, yuck. That was gross. NC State wins over North Carolina 82-58. It's the biggest loss to the Wolfpack since 1962. That's a long time ago, friends. Carolina falls to 20-6 overall, 8-5 in ACC play. They are now 6th in the ACC standings, tied with Louisville, who also lost on Tuesday night. They lost to SMU. KenPom, Carolina falls from 28 all the way down to 34. They're now 30th in offensive efficiency and 46th in defensive efficiency. This is very much so a therapy session as we try to unpack and deal with this loss. One silver lining from Tuesday, Dylan Mingo's a Tar Heel. Love that. Very excited about that. But that doesn't help this game at all. That helps next year and beyond. And so, man, very difficult. So here's how we're going to handle this. We'll look at the game. We'll talk about some of the things that happen. We'll look big picture, and then we'll carry on with that. Look, I know you are without Caleb Wilson in this game. I know you are without Henri Veesaar in this game. But I hope that the Tar Heels are livid with this performance. I hope that the Tar Heels are embarrassed by this performance. I know on sports teams I've been on, when something like this happens, even if we're missing somebody, it's like, man, we had a chance to rise to the occasion and we couldn't do it. And I get it. When you're down your two leading scorers, and it's a historic, crazy thing. In fact, that'll probably be my shady stat of the game on the full Wednesday show. But my goodness, you guys, that was rough. That was very, very rough. Carolina got a lead early, like 1-0 and 6-4, and that was it. Ended up trailing 37-something of this game. And here's the thing. Like I said this yesterday on our preview, I'll say it again today. No excuses. Teams all over the country are banged up and missing players. Maybe not their two best players, maybe not their two leading scorers, but everybody's banged up at some level. And on this night, let's be honest. Let's just be very frankly honest. North Carolina didn't have the personnel to play with State, to stay with State. It just wasn't there. State was able to do anything they wanted offensively. Didn't help that Carolina couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, but it didn't matter because Carolina couldn't stop State on the other end of things. And that said, man, oh man, would I love to see them again in the ACC tournament, and I would love to see them with a fully healthy Caleb Wilson and Henri Veesaar. Because obviously that again, I'm saying no excuses. I'm not going to say I'm not going to cheapen the victory. I'm not going to put an asterisk on it. Nothing. You can't do that. Like, that's sports. You play with who you got. While at the same time, we can all recognize that this game looks drastically different if those two guys are playing. And by that, I'm not even saying Carolina still might have lost this basketball game. Like, that's a very real possibility. State's a good basketball team, but not like this. You know what I mean? Like, it just, the game is wildly different with those guys in the lineup. And so I'd love to see how Carolina would match up, would be able to handle things with a healthy roster. Speaking of healthy roster, man, State, I felt like they're just taking shot after shot early. Darion Williams went up to try to block a Jaron Stevenson shot, and just his feet kind of got swept out from under him, and he lands on his head, just bleeding everywhere. You had who was it? Trey Holloman twisted his ankle on one of the first plays of the game. One of their bigs came down awkwardly on his ankle, which, by the way, I just remembered that play. Carolina had an advantage situation going back the other way. The young man was not in danger. It was not like an urgent situation. It's just not, just a twisted ankle. It wasn't some major medical thing that had to be attended to immediately or he would die. It's not a heart attack. It's not a stroke. It's not something like that. There's not a bone sticking out. Let the play finish out, for crying out loud, and then call timeout once State has the ball back, right? If the action is going to come back down the court and he's still laying there, okay, then you stop it once State has the ball back. But Carolina has an advantage situation breakout. Like, why are you stopping that play? That doesn't make any sense to me, and was very frustrating. Carolina has their biggest deficit of the entire season. 24 points was the final tally, and the biggest tally of the game. And man, that's tough to look at, tough to reckon with, regardless of the personnel. Have we gotten far enough into it now where we can talk about the whole Will Wade and Quadir Copeland of it all? These dudes, how can you like them if you're NC State? Like, I get it. It's that kind of thing where if they're on your team and or are your coach, you probably love them. But when you're the opposition, it's like, dude, shut your mouth and play basketball. And Will Wade, like, just like everything is grumbling and complaining. Just, my goodness. Like Zayden, here's a couple examples. Zayden High fouls out and Copeland is just chirping at him. I was honestly very proud of Zayden High, who I know his motor runs hot, to not turn around and deck the kid, right? He's just mouthing and chirping all game long, talking to the bench, mouthing to Caleb Wilson in the handshake line. Apparently he told Caleb to lace it up next time. Okay, fine. If he's healthy, he will. Like, what do you want? And here's my thing with Quadir Copeland. He's a great basketball player. You are making yourself look bad by doing stuff like that. Like, you're too good a basketball player to need to do stuff like that. That's the kind of cheap shenanigans that somebody who's not good has to do to try to gain an edge. That's not a good look, man. And I get it, because you're playing for Will Wade. There you go. And this other kid that checks in late, this bench kid checks in and starts mouthing the Carolina bench and gets teed up, jacking a shot at half court at the end of the players are a reflection of the coach. Let's just leave it there and we move on. Let's recognize this though. That's good for the ACC. Like, the shenanigans of all of that, like the Will Wade circus, that's great for the ACC. So man, crazy stuff in that regard. All right. There are some things where it's clearly obvious how Carolina can and should attack NC State if fully healthy. It just didn't have the personnel to be able to do that in this game. I'd like to look at that. I'd like to look at Carolina's bad shooting night. I'd like to look at how, yet again, it's the makeshift front court that holds their own. The struggle was with the guards. We'll look at that and a couple other things coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward moment for those who show there's more to the score than what's on screen. It's tough to find one coming out of this game, but man, I'm just so proud of Zayden High for stepping into moments like this where, like, he's been sitting on the bench, not playing much, some games not playing at all, and he gets these two opportunities to start. Has a great performance Saturday, has his first career double-double in this game. Just, man, that is what being an athlete and a teammate is about, is not moping when your number's not called, but being ready when your number is called. And man, so I really think Zayden High moving the game forward by how he stayed ready. Moments like that remind us what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and that I never quit mentality. Mazda, man, they put that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel, but what it took to get there is what makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right, let's get the box score pulled up here. As gross as that's going to sound to do, we are going to get it pulled up. You saw, let's go back to seeing how you could attack NC State. We've heard Will Wade talk a lot about, and now I understand why, how much NC State is just, no matter how much he cajoles, no matter how much he tries to get it through their heads, like, it's funny because they play this kind of chippy style of basketball where they're real handsy, real fat, like kind of daring the refs to call stuff, but they don't get back in transition very well. They aren't rim protectors at all. I mean, the rim is open at will. I think Caleb would have absolutely feasted in this game. Henri would have feasted in this game. And so you can absolutely attack that, man. They're a great shooting team. And on a night where they're hitting it, how did they end up 9 of 20 from 3? They didn't even have to take that many because they were just kind of taking Carolina at will in some other ways. But man, like between getting out in transition against them and between getting to the rim, I think Carolina, fully healthy, could have their way on that side of the floor. Carolina just has to figure out how to get some stops. I think the full personnel obviously helps that, but you can't assume that, right? That's part of it. The other thing, and part of it, like going back to Kadir Copeland, this dude's out here like scoring. He's too small in everybody. He's scoring and flexing. Meanwhile, Carolina's already got the ball down the other side of the floor. And on a night when shots are going in, multiple times, Will Wade had to pull him off the floor and be like, dude, you got to shut up. Right? Like, what are we doing here? And of course, that happens. Like you just see why State gets themselves in trouble sometimes, how they had that meltdown against Miami the other day. It's because they're not locked in full game. So I'd love to get another shot at them, but they win this one. And there you go. That's the only matchup of the regular season. But of course, this happens on a night where Carolina absolutely putrid shooting from outside, 5 of 33, 15% for the Tar Heels. I mean, it's just, there you go. That's really all you need to see from this thing. That it wasn't happening in this game. Carolina 1 of 16 in the first half from beyond the arc. Obviously didn't get much better in the second half. And some of that too is they're just trying to shoot themselves back in the game. Unfortunately, they shot themselves further out of the game is how it played out. Finally, for the first time in the last 4 games, Carolina wins the rebounding battle, but only technically. Carolina wins rebounding 40-38 overall. State got 3 more defensive rebounds, where Carolina had the advantage was offensive rebounding. They got 17 offensive rebounds to State's 12. But here's where it's like, okay, good, you got the rebounds, but you didn't do enough with them. Here's what I mean. Carolina, 17 offensive rebounds, but just 12 second chance points. State, on the other hand, 12 offensive rebounds, which is a good number, of course, but 17 points off of those offensive rebounds. That's not good. Like that's just not good enough from Carolina in that regard. And yeah, like what do you want to do with that? Carolina was struggling to get shots up, getting the rebounds, getting the offensive rebounds. Zayden High, man, he was getting in and doing it, and that was great. But what State, I thought, so wisely did offensively was it was clear that Carolina did not have the personnel to stop either Kadir Copeland or Darion Williams. And so it was almost like they were just trading back and forth. One possession, Copeland goes one-on-one with someone. They get their switch and go one-on-one, and Carolina can't stop it. Next time down, Darion Williams gets whoever he wants on him and has his way. I mean, that was – and why would you – if you're State, of course you're going to keep doing that, right? Because Carolina is showing a complete inability to stop it. Eventually, finally, but way too late, Carolina made a switch, started rushing a double at him. But obviously Copeland is such a good playmaker that he's just able to get it to somebody else wide open who cans a three. And so all sorts of credit to NC State for recognizing a weakness for Carolina and exploiting it. And oh, by the way, even with Caleb Wilson and Henri Veesaar, you know what they would do? Because Carolina essentially switches everything, although maybe they would have only switched 1 through 4 if Veesaar's in the lineup. They're just going to keep switching till they get an advantage matchup and then go one-on-one, and either they score or Carolina brings the double, they make the pass, boom, the shot goes in. So even with Wilson and Veesaar, I'm not convinced that you stop that tonight. That's part of it too. Okay, here's the other thing that's kind of odd from this game. You think about, all right, no Caleb Wilson, no Henri Veesaar. And the thought is, so that means Carolina's going to struggle in the front court and maybe the back court will be okay. No, the makeshift fill-in front court is the only group that was doing really well in this game. Zayden High, first career double-double, 13 points, 10 rebounds, fouled out, 4 offensive rebounds. He's 4 of 6 from the field, 5 of 8 at the free throw line, did have 4 turnovers, so there's that, but also had 2 blocks in the game in 30 minutes. As for Jaren Stevenson, also 13 points, 4 of 7 from the field, so they were a combined 8 of 13, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. He missed all his threes, but 9 rebounds, 4 of them were offensive, had an assist, no turnovers, and a block. The front court did their job. I don't know what much more you could ask for. Carolina scores 58 points. High and Stevenson have a combined 26 of those. That's just shy of half. And the poor front court, the poor backcourt couldn't do anything in this game. Derek Dixon, 2 of 12. Something's broke with Derek Dixon's shot right now. Have you noticed this? Like, he had the banked in 3 Saturday. It was like, well, that wasn't what he was going for. Multiple threes in this game. He did hit 1, but had multiple threes that just looked bad. I hate to say that, but I mean, it's true, and they did. So he's 2 of 12 from the field, 1 of 9 from 3. Seth Trimble, 1 of 9 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3. That's a combined 3 of 21 from the field and 1 of 12 from 3. Yikes. Luka Bogovac, you add in the starting wing, was 3 of 8 for 9 points, 2 of 5 from 3. That's 40%. That's really good from him. But you combine all that shooting, and this is not enough from the starting backcourt and wings. Thankfully, Jonathan Powell adds in some. Jaden Young added in a little bit, but it's just tough, man. If your starting guards aren't going to be able to do it, and Kyan Evans comes in and doesn't score a single point, I don't know what to tell you. Again, so much of this is different with Caleb Wilson and Henri Veesaar. We continue to come back to that, and we recognize it, and that's the thing. All right, you guys. So that's that. That's how this game went. Unfortunately for Carolina, no good. I would love to see if we've got some comments, some thoughts, some chats over there. So why don't we do that? Let's take one more break, and then we'll go over to the chat line and see what you guys have for us, and then we'll get out of here. Coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. Hey, have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is now giving you the chance to do that. Turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. You just use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience for you with this sweepstakes. Maybe you're already looking at the NBA futures board. You're thinking about which team can make a deep run. Man, this right now, perfect time to lock it in. Because not only are you making picks like who's going to win the conferences, etc., it adds an extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch of the NBA regular season. And now, of course, not only can those picks cash, but it could also send you to the NBA Finals. Carolina was a 7.5-point underdog in this game, and they did not cover. What's that line going to look like against Syracuse Saturday? We will find out later in the week. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip for 2 to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's get right on over to the comments and see. I know we don't have a ton tonight, so we'll just see what we have and see if we can riff off of those. Justice Wells, yeah, this was something I had wondered. Says, referring to the first half, that was as terrible a first half as you can play. We can come back, but it's going to take a lot with Henri and Caleb. And with Henri and Caleb, I think we win this one by at least 10. That was my wondering. Carolina down 14 at the half, if I remember correctly. And there was just this wondering of like, can Carolina cut into this lead? Can Carolina get enough stops in the second half to make it respectable? We've seen it a lot in the second half of games this year, but I should also say we've seen it a lot with those two guys in the starting lineup. Is different without them. Carolina made a couple pushes. I thought they had a good play right out of halftime, getting Zayden off to the right wing in front of the bench, getting Jaren open underneath the basket, assist over the top, nice lay-in from Jaren. But Carolina wasn't able to execute that enough. I thought getting to the rim, getting the ball into the post is where Carolina could have made some hay. But let's give props to NC State there. They did not allow Carolina to turn the corner. They were doing a great job of moving laterally, walling Carolina off from finding their way in. At times, as I said earlier, there were other times when Carolina could basically get to the rim at will. So it was kind of odd in that regard. But every time Carolina would make even a mini push, NC State would just score again, would just isolate Williams, would isolate Copeland or bury a three, whatever it was. And that was that. And so, man, it's tough. Our guy, Joe Alexander or Joseph Alexander, he told me he doesn't care which. So we'll go with Joe for tonight. Says guards have to give us something. Yes, they do. Beyond that, we need to start creating defensive stops. Press, trap, take some chances. We'll get burned some, but we have to create some offense off of our defense. And this is a great point from Joe here. Especially in again, like I've said, I'd love for Carolina to use this proactively, like press, traps, etc., rather than reactively. But tonight would have been a great opportunity to use it reactively. I think Carolina wanted to see, since we have our quicker personnel, can we match up with NC State? The answer was no. We learned that. So once Carolina figured that out, I would have loved to have maybe tried some of this. However, as Joe said about getting burned, you know how Carolina is really good at not turning over the ball? So's NC State. Coming into the game, these teams were 12th and 13th in the nation in terms of turnover percentage. That might have flipped after this game because Carolina had 12 turnovers, NC State just 4. But I think it is a thing that it's worth taking some chances on because Carolina, when they've utilized some pressure, they've been able to get some turnovers. I just don't understand why you don't go to that regularly. It's a frustration for sure. It really, really is frustration. Back to Justice Wells, who says, hang on, water drink. We can't win with our guards playing this bad. Derek Dixon has to start making shots, and Seth has to be better with our injuries. Jaren and High are playing like our two best players. It's tough. Seth seemed hesitant at times tonight. There was a wide open corner three he had, and this was before Carolina was even shooting so poorly from three, and he doubted himself. Derek, I believe, has hit something of a freshman wall. His last 5, 6, 7 games, I think it is now, his shooting percentage is it's really, really bad, unfortunately. And so Carolina's going to have to figure something out there. But it's just like, man, it's not like Kyan Evans is giving you anything either. That's the problem. It's like, where do you turn? It's tough. It's really, really tough. Zane Jackson, I like this and I agree. The one takeaway from this is that High will be able to play a couple minutes when we get healthy, and that Seth is not a number one option. Yeah, I think what you've learned here is that Zayden, if he can stay out of foul trouble and stay away from turnovers, both of which plagued him in this game, fouled out, had 4 turnovers and 1 assist. But his touch around the basket, his effort, his energy, his offensive rebounding and putbacks, I'd love to see more of that. I don't know how much run he can get, and I don't know if it's just that kind of thing of like there ain't nobody else to bring in. So like he's just settled in and is playing. I don't know if that's what it is, but I absolutely think you got to continue to give him some more opportunity. And so, man, really, really tough. Back to Joe Alexander, who says Luka has to be an elite shooter to justify his minutes, and he's just not there. Unfortunately, like Luka is definitely making strides, but at this point, he's not what we had hoped or thought he would be preseason. And so I think you continue to watch for his development. I think you've learned that at least for this season, when you're healthy, he's a bench piece that can come in. And when he's coming off the bench, that's when he's been at his best. I think he's really leaned into that role. And so that's part of it as well. And so with Luka, I think a lot of it is get the dudes healthy, get him back to the bench and allow him to come off the bench. And that's when you're going to be in great shape. Jonathan Brooks says season is collapsing. There've been a couple frustrating losses, to be sure. Again, going back to the California swing, shouldn't have lost those. Going back to Miami last week. I mean, we learn now Henri was sick. Caleb was broken. But man, you really think you could have won that game. That's frustrating. But then you have this moment where, you know, it's a rock in a hard place because you're without so much personnel and it just is what it is, unfortunately. I'm not going to say season's collapsing, but you got, was it 5 remaining regular season games now? And I'm not worried about Carolina going to the bubble. I'm not worried about them dropping out of the tournament. But you're in real danger of falling to like 7, 8, 9 status if you can't get these guys back in healthy. You got to beat Syracuse. You got to beat Virginia Tech. And that leaves Louisville and Clemson at home and on the road at Duke. Assuming you can win at Syracuse, assuming you can beat Virginia Tech, that'll give you 10-5 in ACC play. If you could somehow find a way to beat, even if you lost to Duke, if you could beat Clemson and Louisville at home, that'd be massive. So to go 4-1 down the stretch, if Carolina does that, it's not season is collapsing. It's Carolina had to weather a storm while these guys were out, and then they get back. But man, it's really tough. So you guys, man, it's just a tough night. Props to NC State. They whooped us, man. You just got to own it, right? Because again, no excuses. I wouldn't want State to make excuses if they were in our position, and they're not going to apologize for beating Carolina, regardless of who was or who wasn't on the roster. That just is what it is. However, I think we can also look at it and say, better days ahead. Let's get healthy. Let's get back to it, right? So what I'm going to do, kind of take stock of things. I'll have the Wednesday show recorded and up for you, including our Four Corners recap of the game. We'll have our shady stat of the game, big picture takeaway as well. And then we'll move on to the Thursday show and just wipe our hands of this thing, right? You just move on and say, that's enough of that. It is what it is. You guys, if you haven't subscribed to the show on video and audio, do it now so you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels. You too could have a therapy session following a blowout at the hands of NC State. If you've not joined our Everydayers Club or the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to see you in either or both of those places. Those links are in the show notes. Here's the truth. Even after a game like this one, it's still a great day to be a Tar Heel. Dylan Mingo, Tar Heel. It's a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll get back to it tomorrow. But until then, peace.